Ever find yourself stuck in a McDonald's line, stomach rumbling, just staring at those glowing kiosks?
Yeah, like maybe they'll make things move faster. I
Right.
think we've all been there. But get this, in today's deep dive, we're looking at this CNN article,
Okay.
and it turns out those kiosks, they haven't quite become the job-stealing speed demons everyone expected.
Interesting.
So, did McDonald's kiosks actually turn into those job-killing robots everyone was worried about?
Yeah,
The answer might surprise you. Remember all those headlines about kiosks coming for our
I
jobs?
do. I do.
Like even back in 1999, there
Mhm.
was this trade publication, Business Information, and they had this quote from McDonald's talking about developing an electronic order taking system that may eventually replace some of its human equivalents.
Oh, wow.
It's like something out of a sci-fi thriller.
It did paint a rather dramatic picture, didn't it?
Yeah.
But it is really interesting, those kiosks.
Yeah.
They haven't taken over completely,
Right.
but they've definitely reshaped how a fast food restaurant works.
Right.
Like one analyst even said it created like a restaurant within a restaurant.
Ooh, a restaurant within a restaurant. I like that.
Yeah.
You've got people navigating kiosks, folks at the counter, and then a whole other world of mobile orders happening in the background. It's like this whole symphony of fast food tech going on.
Yeah, it's really changed what those working behind the counter, what they do.
Yeah, and the CNN article, it highlights this really interesting point from the CEO of Shake Shack.
Okay.
He calls kiosks brilliant upselling machines because those screens,
Oh, yeah.
they're really good at tempting us
Right.
with milkshakes and extra fries,
Yeah.
all that.
Oh, for sure. It's like the classic example of how technology can be used to nudge us to do things.
Right.
Not always good for our waistlines, maybe
Mhm.
not our wallets, but still. But it's interesting, even with all this potential, actually using kiosks hasn't been so smooth.
Oh, tell me about it. Sometimes those kiosks feel like a recipe for disaster. Like I'm stuck behind someone
Uh-huh.
and they're just like poking at the screen trying to customize their order.
Right.
Or those times when the credit card reader decides to stop working.
Oh.
Or I do it myself.
Oh, yeah.
Like I accidentally hit McFlurry instead of Oreo McFlurry.
Right, yeah, it's not the silver bullet. It's supposed to be technology.
Right.
There's this fascinating study from Temple University,
Okay.
and they found that even with kiosks, if a line forms, people get stressed. Customers get stressed, and guess what?
What happens?
Stressed customers don't spend as much.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're feeling rushed and annoyed.
Right.
You're probably not going to be like, ooh, let me explore the menu. What else looks good?
Exactly.
So much for those upselling superpowers.
Exactly. And it all ties into those assumed benefits of kiosks. Like we always hear, they're supposed to make things faster, boost sales,
Yeah.
but it's more complicated than that.
Right.
Take Bolero, for example, the bowling alley chain. They were in that CNN article, too.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So they tried putting kiosks in the lanes so people could order without leaving their game.
Oh, smart. Okay.
But it totally backfired.
Yeah.
The staff didn't know how to use them. Customers were confused. They basically just became these expensive pieces of tech that everybody ignored.
Wow. So even with the coolest tech, it all comes down to the humans using it.
Right.
Which, that reminds me of another thing. When kiosks started showing up, there was all that debate about them being a way for companies to avoid raising wages.
Oh, yeah, that whole automation versus jobs debate.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Right. Like the article even quotes a former McDonald's CEO, Ed Renzi.
Okay.
And he basically said, I told you so. When McDonald's started rolling out more kiosks back in 2016,
Yeah.
he was convinced minimum wage increases would force businesses to replace workers with machines. So, did his prediction come true? Are fast food jobs extinct now?
Well, not quite. It's not that simple. I mean, a lot of fast food restaurants have adopted kiosks, so they're automation.
Right.
But they're also dealing with like delivery apps, what customers want, and yeah, those rising labor costs.
Right. You can't just say kiosks mean less jobs.
So it sounds like kiosks haven't really caused this huge job apocalypse.
Right.
And they haven't turned into this perfect efficiency solution either.
Right.
They've just kind of found this awkward place in the fast food world.
That's a really good way to put it. And it actually reminds me of all those other self-service technologies.
Okay.
Like, remember ATMs?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
When those things first showed up,
Yes.
everybody thought bank tellers would be out of work.
Right. Gone.
But their jobs changed.
Okay.
Instead of handling routine things, they started providing more financial advice,
Right. Okay.
customer service.
Interesting. So it's a parallel.
Yeah.
It's like those self-checkout lines at the grocery store.
Right.
They're supposed to make things faster.
Right. But half the time I'm waving my hands trying to get an employee to help me because my avocado won't scan or I forgot my reusable bags.
Right. And you know what's even more interesting?
What?
There's evidence that self-checkout might actually be causing more shoplifting.
Wait, really? That's crazy. So sometimes these tech solutions create a whole other set of problems.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
And it shows how important it is to think about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
The unintended consequences when we use these technologies.
Right. It's like this domino effect. You make one change, it sets off all these other changes.
Exactly.
Big and small. So if these kiosks aren't stealing all the jobs and they're not always the best way to order, then what's the point? What are we supposed to take away from all of this?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it goes way beyond McDonald's.
Right.
This is about how tech is changing, well, everything. How we work, how we live.
Okay, yeah, tell me more.
I think if we want these technologies to actually work, and I mean work for the businesses and the people working in those businesses,
Right.
we're going to ask ourselves some hard questions. Like, how can we be sure these systems actually make things better for customers
Okay.
and not just make us do the work?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, am I really saving time with this kiosk?
Right.
Or am I just doing a job that someone needs to get paid for?
Exactly. And then on top of that, we need to think about the people working these jobs, what skills they need. Are they getting trained properly to use all this new stuff, you know? Will those skills even be useful in the future?
So we shouldn't be worried about robots taking our jobs, but figuring out how to work with them so everyone benefits.
Now you're talking. It's about finding a balance. Remembering the human side of things. I mean, we're not living in some fully automated world yet.
Right, right. So what does all this mean for the future of fast food? Or even work in general?
Well, if you look at the numbers, the fast food industry is still adding jobs.
Really?
Yeah. And this is with kiosks, with minimum wage going up, all the things people thought would kill those jobs.
Huh. That is surprising. So I guess the robot takeover isn't happening quite yet.
Not quite, no.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we should just relax and say everything's fine either. There's more to it.
Right.
The industry is also dealing with delivery apps. What customers want is changing, and those rising labor costs we talked about.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
It really is. So kiosks are just one part of a much bigger picture.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily the enemy, but they show us just how complicated all of this is, you know?
It is.
Tech, work, and trying to get a burger and fries.
Exactly. And as technology gets even more advanced, we've got to be smart about it.
Yeah.
It's not about what tech can do, but how it can work best for everyone.
It really makes you think. This deep dive has totally changed how I see those kiosks.
It's like technology always has these ripple effects, you know?
Right.
And we don't always see them coming.
It's like that butterfly effect thing.
Yeah, exactly. One small change, like adding a kiosk to a fast food place, it can lead to all these other huge changes.
Exactly.
And we got to be aware of that, all of us, not just the CEOs and stuff.
So, like, for our listeners out there, what's the big takeaway here? What should we be thinking about when we go to McDonald's? Or really any business with these automated systems?
You know, I think the most important thing is technology. It's just a tool.
Okay.
It can be good or bad,
Right.
but it's how we use it that matters.
It's up to us to make sure we're using it the right way.
Exactly.
Right.
We've got to think about the consequences, good and bad, and ask ourselves some tough questions like, is this really making things better? Who's benefiting? Who might be losing out?
Those are really good questions. And I bet those questions are only going to get more important as technology keeps changing.
Absolutely. The future of work, how we live our lives, it all depends on how we answer those questions.
Well said. This has been an awesome deep dive. Learned a lot about more than just McDonald's kiosks, that's for sure.
Me too. It's been great talking about all this with you.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us. So next time you see a kiosk, don't just see a machine, all right? Think about those ripple effects. Until next time, happy deep diving.